This demonstration is for the cap sleeve. Again, if you're using the 5th edition of Pattern Making for Fashion Design, this is on page 308. We are going to do the cap sleeve design. The graphic here shows two different designs. We're doing the jutting cap, which is design 1, and then design 2 shows you how to do a variation of this with gathers, so some added fullness at the cap. So we'll be working uh, just through figure 1A, and you can stop where it says add and gathers. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, because we will be tracing off the top of the sleeve sloper, is set up a guideline to match up our grain line for the sleeve in the center of the paper using your L square or your clear ruler. Please remember that we will be putting seam allowance on this, so make sure that you have enough room at the top and bottom of your page. My paper is folded here because I have more than I know I need, but this is an 18 by 12 piece of paper that I've cut. So I'm going to line up my grain line here, and I'm going to trace, making sure that I transfer my notches to this pattern piece about 2 inches below the bicep line. I'm going to go back in and mark the bicep line using either my L square or clear ruler. So I'm going to make sure this is a right angle here. And just make sure your line is not a broken line. Okay. Next step. So below that bicep line, I'm going to come down an inch. So I'm using a 2-inch ruler. So that's half of the ruler. And this will be the hem of my sleeve here. And we're going to take away from your underarm seam here. So I'm coming in 1/4 of an inch, which again is 2 blocks. I make a tick line here, and I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And I'm going to connect from the underarm point to that 1/4 of an inch point to create a new underarm seam here. Okay, so essentially I can go ahead now and erase that original underarm seam. Clean this up a little bit. Now I do want the cap of my sleeve to lay flat instead of this being a set-in sleeve. So we will be trimming 1 inch from the cap of the sleeve. So I'm going to come down 1 inch and make a tick line on my grain line here. I'm going to use my armhole curve or French curve. And what I'm going to do is line this up and then sort of swing it out until it hits my, without going above it. Until it hits the cap. I'm going to flip my curve and do the same thing on this side. And I want to make sure I'm not moving above that 1-inch point. So I'm going to line it up at the 1-inch point and just rotate my curve until it hits my sleeve. Okay, and I'm just going to true this here so it doesn't dip down. Looks good. And now I can go in and erase that original line for the cap. That's looking good. So now we also need to make sure that this juts out at the bottom, take away from the bottom. So this is your decision based on the designer, but I'm going to have us go up 2 inches here. So I'm going to line up at the grain line again, mark 2 inches. And we're going to do the same thing that we just did to the cap. So I'm going to line up my curve here and just swing it until it hits that point for the underarm seam. I could move it a little bit. Just, oh, that's not good. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Now I can get rid of all of my original guidelines and go ahead and put my seam allowance in. And just for mine, I'm going to fix this here because this is looking a little wonky. Let's redraw that. So this is what your sleeve should look like now. And I'm going to go in and put the seam allowance on it. So for this, because this is a curved hem, we want to do a little bit less seam allowance. So I'm going to have you do 1/2 inch at the bottom, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch at the bottom, 1/2 inch on the underarm seam, and 1/4 inch at the top. So I'm going to do 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch here. Remember, with the curve, you need to pivot. And when you cut, just make sure you're cutting carefully to clean up your lines. And we're doing 1/4 inch on the cap. So that's 2 blocks on your clear ruler. And carefully cut this out, and then we'll label it. So this is a sleeve, so this will be self 2. We'll be cutting 2 of the main fabric, and I am using size 6 sleeve sewer. Yours will be size 8. Remember to put your name or initials on it and indicate your grain line, which is at the center of the pattern. And make sure you have gone in to transfer your notches. Okay, so now I could go ahead and cut this. So this is a cap sleeve. Here's my grain line. This is self 2 over my size, and then my name label. Okay.